Have you ever cried during a movie, even though you knew none of it was real? Have you ever believed something simply because the story felt true? Our brains are wired for narrative, so much so that a good story can override logic, distort memory, and even reshape who we are. But why? Why does the brain trust stories more than facts? Today, we're decoding the psychology of narrative, how stories hack your brain, influence your decisions, and shape your beliefs, often without you noticing. Welcome to Noolith. Let's explore the mind beneath the story. Humans are the storytelling animal. We explain, interpret, remember, and predict everything through narrative structure. We are stories, not just biologically, but psychologically. Because when we try to understand life purely through facts and data, the world feels chaotic. Stories bring meaning, order, and emotional sense. But this built-in narrative machinery can become a double-edged sword. Stories can help us learn, grow, and unite. But they can also blind us, deceive us, and divide us. To understand how the world shapes us and how we shape ourselves, we must understand why stories feel more real than reality. Think of your brain as a master novelist constantly writing. Your senses provide raw data, but the brain turns it into narrative. It connects dots that might not be connected. It fills gaps when information is missing. It builds causes where only coincidences exist. This is called narrative bias. The mind insists on a story even when there isn't one. Evolutionarily, stories helped early humans survive. Stories taught what to fear and trust. Stories transmitted knowledge faster than trial and error. We are descendants of people who believe the right stories, or at least the stories that kept them alive. Without stories, the brain panics. With stories, the brain relaxes. The world makes sense. Why do we fall for fictional characters more than real politicians? Because stories activate emotion first, reason second. Neuroscience shows the amygdala reacts before the prefrontal cortex. We feel, then we think. A story's emotional arc hijacks our attention. Suspense triggers cortisol. Resolution gives dopamine. Empathy releases oxytocin. And the moment emotions rise, critical thinking drops. That's why propaganda, conspiracy theories, and manipulation often come wrapped in emotional narratives: fear, hope, belonging. Emotion is the Trojan horse of belief. Our brains are pattern recognition machines. When events happen in sequence, we assume if A comes before B, A caused B. This is apophenia, pattern seeking gone too far. Seeing faces in clouds, finding meaning in coincidences. Believing a lucky charm causes success. Stories feed this instinct. They turn randomness into destiny. That's why we say, everything happens for a reason. It was meant to be. This is part of my journey. Stories protect us from chaos. Narrative isn't something the brain uses, it's who we are. Your identity is a highlight reel of memories, edited, exaggerated, remixed, told in a way that feels meaningful. The self is a story you constantly rewrite. You are the protagonist. Everyone else is supporting cast. Life events become plot twists. The mind prefers a coherent lie over a meaningless truth. That's how we justify mistakes, failures, and contradictions. We rewrite the story to protect our self-image. As neuroscientist Michael Gazzaniga said, the interpreter inside the brain creates a narrative that keeps us sane, even if it's wrong. Give someone statistics and they'll forget. Give them a story and they'll remember and believe. This is called the narrative transportation effect. When the brain is immersed in a story, doubt turns off, skepticism lowers, memory opens. That's why courtrooms use testimonies, politicians use stories over data, advertisers sell lifestyle, not product. Facts require effort, stories require surrender. Stories don't just shape individuals, they form groups. Every culture runs on shared myths, flags, national identity, religion, political ideology. The narrative becomes a badge of belonging. We believe what our side believes, even when evidence collapses, because rejecting the story means exile. If I'm wrong, I'm alone. If I question the story, I'm the enemy. Many wars, revolutions, and movements weren't fueled by weapons, but by narratives. Stories can be dangerous when they simplify complex issues into heroes versus villains, turn opinions into absolute truths, replace thinking with feeling. Cult leaders, scammers, and dictators have always known this. Control the story, control the belief, control the people. The brain doesn't check credibility. It checks coherence. Does this story feel right? That is how belief becomes illusion. But stories also save us. Psychologists use narrative therapy. Rewrite your story. Rewrite your life. Stories help us heal trauma by giving meaning to suffering, turn failure into resilience, see ourselves as capable of change. Think of your favorite hero. They fall, they struggle, they rise. We adopt those arcs into our own identity. Stories remind us we are not stuck characters. We are evolving authors. Since stories are powerful, we must use them consciously. 3 questions to ask. Who wrote this story? What do they gain if I believe it? What emotion is being targeted? Fear? Pride? Belonging? What facts is this story ignoring? What am I not being told? Don't reject stories. Understand them. Awareness creates freedom. Stories are how humans make sense of the world. They are the code behind beliefs, identity, culture, and purpose. But in a world overflowing with narratives, the most important one is the story you choose to live by. So ask yourself, are you the author of your beliefs, or just a character in someone else's plot? If this video sparked something in your mind, tell me in the comments. What story has shaped who you are? And if you want more videos on the psychology of belief, identity, and consciousness, subscribe, like, share this with someone who loves deep questions.